Okay, hey everyone. Good morning. Did anyone climb the bell tower this morning?
I waited in line.
Yeah, I know some people who have been in line for like 2 hours and expect to be in line for at least one more.
Wait, so you just climb it? That's all there is to it? Or you get something like something?
So I climbed the bell tower when I graduated. It was just so hot. And I think it was the day or the day before a Comp 431 test. So I was just like standing in line for 2 hours, studying for scrolling through slides on my phone. I was like, at least it'll be cool. And then they really don't want you to write in the bell tower.
So you can't put your name in there?
So you're not supposed to put your name in there. I did not. I actually didn't. I think some people still do sneak in Sharpies or whatever. Yeah. Like some people but there's like a book outside that you can sign. So I just wrote my name in a book, climbed a bunch of stairs, and then got an okay view of campus through a small window. You didn't even get to go to the top because that's where the bells are. You just go 2/3 of the way up and look out a small window. And you can see the thing that they play the bells with, which is kind of neat. It's this crazy lever piano thing. And it's kind of cool because UNC has one of the only actual bell towers. A lot of other campuses State just have speakers up there. We have bells, which is cool, but I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that experience. So if you're missing out, I wouldn't worry too much. But I did not tell that to my friends who were waiting in line for 3 hours because I didn't want to make them sad. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to be talking about just some patterns that you might see while you're using some system frameworks. The goal for today isn't necessarily teaching, making sure that you fully understand everything we talk about. But I just want to get some keywords into your head so you're oh, I know what to Google now when you run into some weird thing in some documentation or some tutorial that you don't understand. First, couple quick announcements. The Prelude widget project is due tonight. Some people started running into some Xcode and simulator bugs after updating the most recent one. It's the most recent Xcode, so if that happens to you, let me know. I'll probably I think I might have already posted a public response to a CampusWire question about this, but if not, I'll do that again. It doesn't actually prevent you from doing the project or submitting. It's just one small detail in the submission video script needs to be changed a little bit. So yeah, that's due tonight. A lot of people have already finished it, which is great. Then the next final project deliverable will be due on Friday. I pushed it to Friday because it took me longer to make than I thought it would, and it ended up being a longer submission than I anticipated. So pushed that back a little bit as a result. Speaking of, that has been released and is due Friday. I'm going to show you really quickly what you'll be taking a look at. So you'll open up the assignment, and it's a little long. It's just a lot of like stuff that I wrote for the most part. I don't think it'll be actually that much that you need to do, but I wanted to give a lot of context. Yeah, and you might be like, ugh, this is annoying. I don't want to do all of this. But these deliverables, whoa, sorry. Everyone say hi to my girlfriend Morgan of 8 years last week. Wow. I was not expecting to see her today. Well, I'll see her today, just not here. Anyways, yeah, these deliverables are here to help you. I thought back to my first like big programming projects, and I was like, man, what kinds of issues did I run into that I wish I had known about earlier? Like sort of technical issues. What sorts of like planning mistakes did I make? Like trying to make something that was too ambitious or not cool and not ambitious enough. So these deliverables are here to help you and set you up for success in the final project. So yeah, just know that that's why they're there. That's why they're here while you're working through it. So if you feel annoyed, know that it's hopefully potentially preventing much more annoyance down the line. Yeah, it would have been so much less work if I just said build an app. So much less work, both in terms of writing the deliverables and grading. But I want you guys to do well. Some things about paid developer accounts. Some people are using what Apple calls advanced app capabilities. I should have been more clear in my write-up about like my initial write-up about which things require paid accounts. This is another one of those times where I have had a paid developer account ever since I started making apps because I put an app on the App Store really early. And so I forgot that a lot of these things required paid accounts. So some things that require these paid accounts are like ShazamKit, WeatherKit, remote push notifications. And I think the sort of common factor between most of these is that they like run code on Apple servers. And like running stuff like Shazam, like this like I assume crazy ML model on their servers is expensive, and you know while they are a $3 or $4 trillion company, they have to pay for their things somehow. So yeah, this won't be a blocker for sure. I will be able to get you access to a paid account if you'd like to use one. Let me know. I'm trying to see if we can find like a university account. There used to be a UNCCS one, but that got deactivated because Carver was trying to find something with the university, and I've reached out to the Carver folks and have yet to get a response. So if you're in Carver or know where I can find Ashley, let me know. If that doesn't work, I have access to the app team developer account, and you can be temporary members of the app team account. We'll just have to like delete it all when you're done. But yeah, let me know. It'll be like a small hassle to get that set up. You'll just need to like send me your Apple, like your email address, your Apple email address. You'll have to like accept some invitation, and then I'll give you a bundle ID that you use. But yeah, let me know if that's if you're one of these people that are going to use a paid developer account feature. And part of the next deliverable is like looking at the tools you're going to use and trying to find out if they require a paid account or not. Next logistical item for final projects. I think I may have said this in lecture, but maybe not have made a big enough deal about it. I don't plan to accept final project deliverables late. Asterisk, if you like have something come up and you know ahead of time, let me know and we can probably work something out. But my goal with these deliverables is to have pretty quick turnaround times so that you have feedback ready when you want to start working on the next thing. And if there's this like 3 or 4 day like period where I don't have everyone's submissions, or have some submissions but they're not fully complete or whatever, that makes it a lot harder to start grading early. So yes, please try and complete them on time. And if you have extenuating circumstances, let me know and we can probably work something out. Yeah, the feedback for the idea submission was released yesterday morning. I wanted to get that out earlier, partially because it took us longer than planned, and partially because there were some people who submitted late. It took longer to get feedback out than I expected, but that was out yesterday morning, so take a look at that. That's also part of your FO1 deliverable. And the feedback was given in grade scope. So like look at the rubric items that are applied to your questions, look at the comments that we left to see what we said. Then just sort of an overall theme I've noticed as I've been looking through app ideas or talking to people about them. The app that you build for the final project does not need to be revolutionary or something that'll get millions of downloads, or it has never existed before. Those are fun goals, but you just need to satisfy the requirements. So something as boring as just recreating the iOS weather app, or like a bad version of the new fancy iOS weather app, totally fine, right? In fact, that exact project, recreating the weather app, was my first big this was my first big iOS app. And I had a lot of fun with it. I made the widget, the customizable widget where you can save different locations and everything, just like the real weather app. And I think I got jobs because of this. It's not the most exciting thing. I didn't put it on the App Store, but I learned a lot when I was making it. And maybe there's an argument that that's a better way to approach the project because the features are already defined, it's possible, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, don't worry about making your app crazy cool, innovative or whatever. Just worry about the requirements. But if you want to do something cool, you can. One part of the FO1 deliverable will be sort of taking your app idea and making 3 different versions of it, like a boring but totally doable version that's that might not excite anyone, but will satisfy the requirements, and you can do it. I think I said an awesome but unrealistic version where this app might change the world, be innovative, but you don't have time for it. And then a version in the middle that strikes a nice balance between I can totally do this in the 3 weeks before it's due, and I'm excited to work on it. And there are some challenges in there. So yeah, you'll see that in FO1. Okay, now we're going to start talking about using system frameworks. I think one important and interesting thing to talk about and to start with will be permissions. So raise your hand if you've seen this kind of dialogue here when using your phone. Yeah? Okay, makes sense. It happens all the time. I don't know. I'm not going to ask these questions for real. Yeah, it happens all the time with apps that want to use your location, apps that want to send you push notifications, apps that want to read your health data, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, sure, we'll talk about this one. Talk with your neighbors about how you feel when you see one of these permissions dialogues pop up on your phone or your laptop. Are you annoyed? Are you wow, my privacy? Yeah, how do you feel when you see one of these? And how often do you just click through? Talk with your neighbor for a minute, and we'll come back.
I'll let you finish.
So.
We can talk after about it. Okay. Anyone want to share their thoughts on permissions dialogues? What do we think? Thumbs up if you like them. Thumbs down if you don't. And like 10 people are saying something. Maybe thumbs in the middle if you just don't care. Okay, whatever. Yeah, these are, they can be annoying, but they're important. So your phone has access to so much information about you, and like pretty sensitive information too, right? Who's in your contacts list, what photos are on your phone, where are you right now, detailed information about your health. There's some other important things. I can't think of any more. Like really sensitive stuff. Oh, like payment details, like your credit card number and stuff. Your phone knows a lot about you, and I think this is becoming more common knowledge, but companies really want to know everything about you for so many reasons. And what's really nice is that before any app can access this data, like iOS requires the developer to like explicitly ask for the user's permission, right? You cannot read health data until the user has seen, or like, not this dialogue, but like seen the health permission dialogue and explicitly said, yes, I want to give them access to this, and this. So yeah, it's really cool. So like, it's impossible for apps to access this information without the user explicitly opting in, which is very nice. But it's often done poorly, and this causes frustrations. So like, I've definitely encountered this when like trying out new apps. I'm like, oh, I want a new to-do list app. Let me try and download a bunch of them. So many of them, just as soon as you open the app, before you know what it does or anything, it's just like, hey, can we send you push notifications? And can we have your location? And can we read your health data? And can I have your social security number? It's just like, right when you open the app, they ask for so many permissions before you even know that you want to use it. And they often request permissions for things it doesn't seem like they really need. And it's just all creepy and weird, puts a bad taste in your mouth. And like, especially the first one, even if the app is well-intentioned, if the user's just downloaded your app, they don't know if they want to keep using it, so they might like decline push notification permissions or location, and that might like severely hamper your app, which sucks, right? It's like, okay, this user wants to use my app, they just, at the very first moment they installed it, didn't know if they wanted to give it access to the location, and now it's going to be a hassle from here on out. Which is annoying and bad for everyone involved. And then macOS is sort of famous these days for just displaying permission notification all the time. And people are very upset about it. But yeah, these permission dialogues are really important for privacy, so that users know exactly what data is being collected about them and have the chance to opt in or out. If your app does actually need this, like access to this data, cool, ask away. And the specific way that you ask for these permissions differs, like depending on the framework that you're using. But there's usually this pattern where first you need to provide in your app this like string that describes how you'll use the data. It should be pretty descriptive. And iOS, like when you build your app, it'll package it up in a way that iOS, like the operating system, can read it out of your app's binary. And when the user taps on the icon, show them the dialogue with your string in it. So like the Maps app has this pretty great usage description that says your location is used to show your position on the map, get directions, estimate travel times, and improve search results. And so this is your chance to tell the user why you need like access to their location. And then a lot of the times or all the time you'll need to take some kind of action in your app to request permissions. Sometimes you like call it explicit like location manager dot request authorization method, and like when you call that method, the permission dialog will be shown. Or other times you just like try and start accessing the data, and you'll be blocked until the user has said yes or no. Yeah, so those are sort of the two things. Provide this usage description, and then take some action to request permissions. So I want to show a real example of this. Can you guys read the code in the back? Maybe not. That sucks. Before, like all of the like code blocks that you saw, like I made manually, and it was really annoying. And now Figma Slides has a built-in code block thing, but I can't change the size of the text. So I tried it. I don't think it worked. Doesn't really matter, and we'll see it in Xcode in a second. But as of like last year or the year before, there's this really nice new API for accessing the user's location. I can show it in Xcode. Yeah, I'll show it in Xcode. There's this new API for accessing the user's location, which is actually really simple to work with. So here is the code. So you just say, hey, I want like live location updates. This gives back what's called an async sequence, which means that this whole thing works just like a for loop. Like in normal for loops, we're like looping, like visiting each element in an array or something. But here, the elements aren't like things in a pre-existing array. They're like events that'll be emitted over time. So like the body of this for loop will be run every time there's a new location update, which is kind of fun. And like these location updates will be delivered every, I don't know, every some number of seconds, you know, every half second, every tenth of a second or something. And that's a long time to computers, so you have to like await. You have to await this location update. This is actually the same kind of syntax that you saw in the widget update or the widget project to like get notified when Swift data changes and like save, like refresh the widgets when that happens. This async sequence thing is new and neat. But when you first try and access the like live updates sequence, iOS will go ahead and show that permission dialog, and your app will be stuck awaiting until the user hits yes or no, and then your code will continue. So it's pretty cool. You don't need to like manage everything, and we'll see in a second the other option, which is a little harder to work with. Yeah, so that is basic sequence, and then it just like passes you this update thing, and you can like read it out. So if the authorization was denied, like if the user says no, you don't want to just like sort of infinitely wait here. So you break out of the loop and finish up. But if it succeeded and you can read out a location, in this little dummy app, I write this to an array and then use this really nice view from MapKit to display like a route. So this is like a running tracker-ish, like a bad version of a running tracker. So let's try it and see what happens. Let's see if we see anything show up. Nothing's happening. This is because we haven't provided the usage description. And other versions of this API report your mistake better, like say, hey, no key found for the usage description, or no value found for the usage description, please provide it. As far as I can tell, this like live updates thing just kind of fails silently. I added a to-do list item to file a bug report about that. But we can add that usage description by going into our Xcode project settings, where we took a look into for the widget project, going here, going to the info tab, and hitting add row. Then you type in which thing you need to provide. I know that this is location when in use usage description, and say something like, we will your location, to record your running route or whatever. Not or whatever, this string is important. Then when you run the app, this time, boom, we see the permissions dialog. It says, hey, would you like this app to be able to access your location? It's going to use it to record your running route. You can say yes. And then now we're getting live location updates, which is really neat. And the simulator has actually pretty good features here. You can say location, and it's got some presets for like a running route, like a bike route, a walk, just like static locations, which makes it really easy to test this stuff. Sometimes if you use like the current location in your project, it might be set to none, and you might get issues because of it. Again, you don't really need to remember the things that you're seeing here. The idea is that you know they exist. And I expect and hope that you'll look up a tutorial that's like how to get current location in SwiftUI, and they'll usually walk you through the exact steps. But yeah, that is permissions. And there are a couple people who said they wanted to use the Google Maps map. This was all the code it took to display a map with MapKit, like the built-in version. Just saying, hey, or import MapKit, and saying, I want a map. It's probably way easier than using the Google version. First-party frameworks for the win. Yeah, that is permissions. Does that make sense? Cool. And a lot of the things that you are trying to use in your projects will require some kind of permissions, like sending notifications requires permissions, like accessing health data requires permissions. I would assume that ShazamKit and stuff, you might not need to request this yourself, but it'll probably ask for microphone permissions, whatever. Yeah, so you'll run into this a lot. Now you know it exists. Then I want to talk about some common paradigms in iOS development, some sort of ways that Apple has set up their code and set up their APIs for you to use. And this will pretty much be a history lesson because when you're using Apple frameworks, you can pretty clearly see get an idea of when the framework was released by how it's shaped. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the delegate pattern, and this came from the 90s and early on in sort of UI programming, where before Swift, all Mac OS and iOS development was done in this language called Objective-C, which is sort of a counterpart to Java and C++. Sort of coming out of the 90s, object-oriented programming is the new hotness. And just like in Java, all of your code needs to be packaged up in classes and passed around as objects and stuff. There weren't any arrow functions or Lambda expressions or closures or whatever. And so they needed to find some patterns to represent this sort of async programming paradigm. And the one that they landed on is called the delegate pattern, which is super similar to observer, the observer pattern, if you take in 301. I'm using some content from an old lecture I used to do. So I'll just go over here and show you the original. So my motivating example here that I like to use is a smart lock, right? Have we heard of smart locks? You can lock your door from your phone. Really nice and convenient, especially when you have guests and stuff. But we have this smart lock, which is installed on your door, and an app that controls it. And we need sort of bidirectional communication here because there's all sorts of things that need, like messages that need to be sent. The app will tell the lock, hey, please unlock the door right now. The lock will tell the app, like, hey, I am now locked or I am now unlocked, whether like because the user pressed something in the app or like they came up with a key and like tried to like actually manually unlocked it or locked it or like typed in the code or whatever. The lock will tell the app when something is going wrong. The lock will tell the app, it might like ask it a question saying, hey, user typed in this code, is it right? Or the user like did their fingerprint scan, is this the right fingerprint, whatever. So the app needs to be able to talk to the lock and the lock needs to be able to talk back up to the app. And in a sort of object-oriented model, right, we'd probably, this is all like super pseudocodey, by the way. Like this is not how this would work in real life. This is sort of a model of the real world. So here in this like object-oriented world, we'd probably do something like this where we have a smart lock class, and a like lock controller class. And I think it was is it composition? Is that like the big object-oriented word where like an object has multiple sub-objects or whatever? I don't know. It's been a while since I took 301. But our like lock controller class has a reference to a smart lock, and it can like call methods on it, right? So like imagine someone pressed a button in the app to lock the door. This like controller class has a button to handle it, and the way it does it is by locking the lock. Pretty straightforward, nothing crazy here. And this is like 301, 210 stuff you've seen forever. But that's only covering this one direction, right? The controller has a reference up to the lock. It can call methods on it. That's all. But in real life, we need this bidirectional communication where the lock can also tell the controller when things happen or ask it questions. And in the object-oriented world, that's through method calls. So here we're going to give the lock a reference back up to the controller. So now the controller has a reference to the lock, and the lock has a reference to the controller, right? And now when the like user, or like not user, like the person who lives in the house, like goes up and like manually, the example I did is here, or like is error handling here. So like if the user tried to like lock the door but the door is open, like can't be locked, maybe the app can, or the lock can now respond back up and tell the app, hey, I failed to do this, there was an error, right? Or like maybe someone like manually with a key like locked the thing. You want your app to reflect the new state. So when the smart lock detects that it has like had a key turn, it can use this reference to the controller and call like a did hardware lock with key or something, right? The smart lock can call that method back up. Does that make sense? It's not a crazy concept. We have two objects with references to each other, and they can call methods back and forth. The way that this turns into, I guess one last detail. This is always done through protocols also. Like the core location framework doesn't know about your map screen view model class, right? It can't say, hey, I want a reference to a map screen view model. It says, hey, I need a reference to something that can handle my updates. So there's a protocol that says, hey, in order to be notified about my events, you need to have did lock, did unlock, did error, and should unlock methods, which is pretty straightforward. it's a protocol, you conform your type to it. And then you can say, hey, when I get a lock, set its controller property to me. Nothing crazy. Then we just change the names a little bit. Instead of lock controller, we change it to lock delegate. The method names change a little bit. They have this like parameter. You don't need to understand all of this. Like you'll never implement your own delegate. You'll just like be someone else's delegate, conform to their protocol. It doesn't really matter how the things are named. But this is like a super delegate-y version of our old code, right? We have the lock delegate. The smart lock has a delegate property that it'll call methods on. And the app lock controller conforms to the delegate and can handle the updates. This code is explaining why there's this parameter. You don't really need to worry about that too much, but it's in case you have like multiple objects that you're managing. So if, for example, you have a front and backdoor lock, in the method calls, you can compare the references. Be like, hey, is the lock that's notifying me right now the front or back one? And you can handle the updates accordingly. But yeah, that's the delegate pattern. And it's often used for async programming because you can let me just make this make a little more sense. Delegate dot bug manager self did receive response. Okay. This is used like in Apple frameworks, old Apple frameworks for like async programming, where like you make a request, it won't come back for a while, and then eventually sometime in the future, it's ready and needs to be delivered to the app. So your view model might like call the fetch function. It's going to take a long time to execute. There weren't async functions at this point. So this would just return very quickly. And then at some point in the future, when the request is done, the manager will call a method on its delegate and say, hey, I'm done. Here's the data you're looking for. And then like the way that you receive the response is in this method that you implemented to conform to the protocol. Yeah, that's the delegate pattern. It's not actually that complicated, especially if you have good object-oriented fundamentals. We're really just doing bidirectional communication here. One object has a reference to another, and the other has a reference back. They can call methods on each other, and all is well. This comes up fairly frequently when using older APIs, like the previous version of the, I can actually show you, the previous version of the like location update API, I already got it open, uses protocols. So there's this like location manager, and we set self to be the delegate. We need to conform to the protocol. And then anytime it has updates for us, like, hey, the permissions changed, or hey, there's new locations for you, or hey, I had an error, it'll call the methods. And then you like request that location updates start by saying, hey, manager, please start updating locations. The actual, like the locations aren't delivered like by returning in that method call, because like getting the user's location is really complicated. You gotta like talk to satellites and cell towers and the Wi-Fi network, and like there's all sorts of stuff that goes into it. It takes a long time. So pre-async await, rather than returning from the method, the like manager will call methods on the delegate. That's all. Not actually that complicated, but you might run into it. The next pattern is completion handlers. If you're coming from JavaScript, like futures and stuff, this is pretty related, except JavaScript kind of like combines async await with other stuff, and it's kind of complicated. But completion handlers aren't that crazy, and you've actually used completion handlers, but on the other side of it. So in the widget timeline provider, right? Do you remember how, like, to provide your timeline, you like call this completion thing? You say, I guess I can show you this too. You say, hey, I now have a timeline. You don't say return timeline. You call the completion function and deliver your timeline that way. This is the next era of Apple frameworks, the sort of like, I don't know when it first came out in Objective-C, but the like sort of 2014 when Swift came out to 2021 when async await came out. This is this next era where async work was done through closures, which we've seen a lot but haven't really talked about in depth. It's just functions you can pass around and call. So yeah, if you needed to do some async operation in here, rather than like awaiting and returning, you would call this completion block. And this is pretty simple. Here I'm using like task and, I feel like I said task, weird, task. But I'm using tasks and like sleeps to mimic like network requests and stuff. But here we have this code, and the like fetch names function does something that takes a really long time, schedules it in the background, and at some point in the future we'll call the completion block. And here, the way you call this method, like calling the method normally and providing this like set of curly braces that are the block that you want to be called when it's done. And so you're saying, hey, please fetch the names from the server, and when you're done, I'll print them out. And we did this sort of like execution order question a little while ago with async await, but here we will print A, C, B, because what happens is we print A, start fetching the names in the background, and continue moving forward so the main thread isn't blocked. C gets printed, and when the like names have been fetched successfully, then execution jumps into here, prints B, and prints the names out. And when I was TAing for Chris's class a while ago, I saw a lot of errors like this. Where people would sort of make assumptions about how code works. They're like, oh, code executes from top to bottom, so when I get the response back, I'm going to set it to like some instance property or some global property variable or something, and then in the line below it, I'm going to do something with it. This is wrong. This will almost never work, because the code in the curly braces won't be run until sometime far in the future after the print statement works. Has anyone made an error like this before? Potentially. If you're not comfortable saying so, I understand. I have. I've seen a lot of people who have completion handlers, a way of doing async code where you pass it a function that will be called when the work is done. I used to have some analogies for these. It was like delegates. The delegate pattern is like, hey, go do something for me, and like send me a text when you're done, and I'll handle it, right? you give it the reference to self, which is like your phone number, and it's gonna call a method on you, like sending you a text when it's done, and you're gonna do the work yourself. When it's finished, and completion handlers are kind of like, hey, go do this work, and I'm gonna tell you ahead of time what to do when you're done. So it's like, go get this thing, go get the screwdriver, and when you have it, like go fix the thing. Rather than, hey, go get the screwdriver and mail it to me when you're done, right? And then async await is like, go get the screwdriver, I'm gonna freeze here until I have it back, and then I'm gonna fix it again. But yeah, that's what's going on here. You might run into these patterns. It's not integral that you understand them 100% right now, but you should know that they exist, and like now you won't be shocked when you see them. That's all I have for today. Don't forget to do the attendance submission, and don't forget to keep up with the final project deliverables. The next one is due Friday night.